justice. Some heat too. I'll let you blow my mind.
Welcome to the 4th episode of I Fought the Law, a podcast dedicated to the law, fighting it, and a potpourri of other
You
topics.
started with potpourri.
Yeah, I did.
Cool.
My name is Brian Hilverda. We're coming to you from the Hilverda McRae recording studios in Twin Falls, Idaho.
I'm Steve McRae, and with us today, we have learned that we have failed to identify our producer, and she is here, Lauren Elizabeth Hilverda,
Hey.
in all of her glory. And with that, I'd like to tell a little story about Lauren.
Yeah, this is great.
Okay.
And this is for. No, I better not tell that story. It would embarrass Susan.
Well, I can cut it out.
No, I don't want you to. Lauren, when she was, I've known you since you were how old, Lauren? No, I didn't.
No,
I was
like
there
3.
with your birth.
You were 3 and a half.
We were going to church together, and I watched your little brother as a baby, because they didn't trust me with any like real church work, and so I was in charge of the little kids. And there was a story that when you first discovered your little brother's penis, what you said after learning the differences between boys and girls,
Okay.
that boys had penises, you said something to the effect of, well, he's going to be a big boy, so I hope he has a big penis.
Yeah, I'm cutting that story out.
Nope. There it is. That's Lauren Elizabeth Hilbert in a nutshell. You're welcome, Susan.
Too bad she wasn't aware of the Hilverda genes at that point.
We have not
Anyway.
introduced her little brother.
We have not. But
Yeah.
also in the room with us is podcast liaison
Sure.
production
Guru. Goblin. Also good.
gargoyle. Production gargoyle.
Don't bring up gargoyles.
Sorry. That was yeah. Anyway, we're happy to be here. Today we're going to talk about some fun stuff. And I will get closer to the mic. Thank you for all the comments online saying that I needed to be closer to the mic. And I take that note to heart. And I see it as you want to hear me more clearly. And what you're really saying is what I have to say is more important. What Steve has to say.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly.
So I will be closer to the microphone.
What are we going to talk about today, Brian?
First, we're going to talk about how was your July?
My July was crazy. Not as crazy as your July.
I had a great July.
You did have a great July.
July 2023 may have been the best month of my life.
Really?
I mean, we did a lot of fun stuff.
Unbutton your shirt.
Okay.
That's usually the response when I ask Brian to unbutton a shirt. Because underneath, I have my Fish t-shirt from the band Fish, but it says Taylor Swift. and I would note that Brian actually put on a button-up shirt, which is a rarity.
Mhm.
And I don't know why he put it on to cover up Taylor Swift.
No, I didn't. I wear a button-up shirt every day to the office, Steve.
You do?
I do, but my office is a hellhole of heat, and I immediately take the button-up shirt off as soon as I walk into my office. I don't have any air
Wait,
conditioning.
and you have a t-shirt on underneath your button-up shirt?
Yeah.
So
I'm not
you
a
wear-
monster, Steve.
So you're wearing 2 shirts to an office and complaining it's too hot?
Fuck you, Steve.
Sorry, Bonnie. And for reference, Bonnie is Brian's mom.
Who
And
is
so-
disappointed with my language choice sometimes.
Yeah.
And I feel badly.
So,
But it's just who I am.
but I'm always going to apologize for you,
Thank
which
you.
I do often, but especially when you cuss.
Yeah.
And it's weird because normally I'm the cusser, but for some reason during this, I don't cuss as much as you because I don't want to disappoint Bonnie.
Well, yeah. And you're also not dealing with you. So you're not going to say,
I'd
fuck
cuss
me,
a
Steve.
lot more. I'd
Sorry,
cuss a
Bonnie.
lot more if I had to deal with me.
You're right. Yeah.
It's what I'm like, out in the world. I'm always dealing with my brain, which is why I cuss a lot.
Which is why the people that love you cuss a lot too.
They really do.
I bet even in Bonnie's brain, she has mentally cussed
Never.
thinking about Steve
How
McRae.
dare you, sir? How dare you? Bonnie's an angel, one of the rare angels on this earth. I would never make fun of her, and I would never think that she cussed.
Poll question for our viewers, all three of you. Please weigh in on whether or not you think Bonnie Hilverda has ever thought a curse word in her brain about Steve McRae.
Oh, about me. Well, yeah. If it's about me, then that
Yeah,
might be the
yeah.
one exception.
Yeah, she's thought some words.
I just had like a throat noise that came up. That's really going to
I've
piss
really
off
heard.
Susan
That is.
because she does not like mouth noises. No,
She
don't.
does.
I want her to hear the gargle that came from my beverage.
What's the temperature of your beverage, Steve?
It's cold, Brian. That's what it is because I
Dude.
like cold beverages.
Do you like that?
I do.
Okay, good. I like cold beverages too.
Nice.
Today we are going to talk about, aside from the fact that I saw 5 Avett Brothers shows in 2 weeks.
I was gonna say I have something to say about that. In the last episode, Steve, and we filmed it at like the end of June. Steve asked you if you had any big plans or vacations coming up, and you said no.
And now we're a month later, and you said my vacations were so great.
You
It
said
was the
my
best
July
time
was
of
the
my
best
life."
month of my life.
Now, hold on. We were like pretty early in June when we were recording that. So I was just thinking that likely the topic of, my July might
I know
come
what
up.
you were really thinking. You knew that you had a vacation coming up with your kids, and you did not anticipate it going well, which I think is valid. I've met your children.
Listen, it was a wild ride. All together, it was wild. We had a good time. I spent ungodly amounts of money on gasoline. But quality family time. You can't put a price on that.
No, and your other daughter has described the Taylor Swift concert as like a pivotal moment in her life.
Yeah.
And I had a chance to sing Taylor Swift with her earlier this week.
We should post some pictures of the Taylor Swift outfits. I went with sort of a 1989 vibe, a mirror ball sort of look.
Shoot.
Lauren went hard on
Way to try to bring
look at me like that.
way to try to
Describe
bring
your outfit.
1970s to 1989 to match an album of Taylor Swift. But because I'm around you enough, I recognize that reference.
Lauren, your outfit was great. What was it?
Mine was Midnight's themed.
It was
So,
really great.
Blue and
Is that-
stars.
Is that a Taylor Swift reference?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Susan, who's provided some fine notes to this podcast, had a nice reputation vibe going on. My suit was
I don't know what any of this means.
that's okay.
Did somebody wear red?
No, we didn't have any reds.
Oh.
Yeah. I did have lots of people taking pictures with me.
Hold on, Brian. Have you formally invited Taylor Swift to join the podcast? Eddie Vedder, you're always invited.
Eddie Vedder. What's our list? Eddie Vedder, Marissa Tomei, not Elon Musk, or David Copperfield,
Don't remember any.
and or Copperfeld.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Was it Reese Witherspoon? Yeah.
Reese Witherspoon.
She's always invited. But let's be honest. Top of the list, dream guests on the podcast, Taylor Swift. That'd be awesome.
You're invited, Taylor.
Do you hear what she did just recently?
No.
She's coming to the end of this leg of the tour.
Mm.
She gave out $55 million in bonuses to her tour crew.
Oh, wow, good for
$100,000 a piece to each of the 55 truck drivers alone.
good for her.
55 truck drivers. Good for her.
Wow, $55 million.
And for those of you that know and love me, know that I love punk rock. I love
That's Taylor Swift.
hippie rock.
Mhm.
But I love Taylor Swift. But it makes me happy that she seems to be a good person.
Honest question.
Yeah.
You get to interview them on the podcast, Taylor Swift or Eddie Vedder?
Oh, don't do that.
No, I'm doing it to you.
I love you, Taylor, but I'd have to put Eddie first.
I think Taylor would understand.
She would. I mean, I've loved Eddie Vedder since I was like 14.
Oh, I know.
So one day we'll talk about how I came to love Taylor Swift. Not on this podcast.
Is it dirty?
No.
Okay, just making sure.
There might even be video of how I came to love Taylor Swift.
If there's video of you singing along with Taylor Swift, I want it so bad.
There probably is. We'll have to check with Councilman Reed to see if there's video from me performing We Are Never
That's
Ever
right.
Getting Back Together from the Red album. But here's what happened. I'm going to tell the story now anyway.
All right.
This isn't going to be a short podcast, Lauren. Sorry. Or we could just cut this and save it for next,
Don't cut anything. I love every bit of this. I want to hear about
This is a
you
good
falling in
conversation.
love with Taylor Swift.
I was invited to sort of a new group of friends because we had just moved and they had reached out and said, hey, come to this lip sync competition. It was sort of right when it was before the big TV show came out with lip sync, but I think it was Jimmy Fallon maybe doing it.
That's right. Yeah.
And so they said, kind of model after this. We'll have sort of a knockout thing, like a tournament of lip syncers. And so I was like, okay. And so I did We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together by Taylor Swift. And it was great.
Did you win? Did you advance to the
I
next?
advanced to the next round. I actually made it to the finals that year, 4 rounds. And I lost to, I believe it was Hilverda Gad, who we should have on the podcast as one of the greatest lip syncers of all time.
She made the
Hillary,
list.
you're
Hillary
on the-
Gad with Eddie Vedder and all the rest.
You're in good company.
Yeah.
Anyway, but following We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together on the Red album is Stay, 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 which is a fantastic song, catchy as hell. And right after that, the next song is a song called The Last Time, which she performed with anyone?
Oh no, I know this. With the guy from oh man,
Come on, you got this. You got this, Stevie.
not Death Cab.
No.
The guy from who is it? Tell me the band he's from. I know this.
Snow Patrol.
Snow Patrol.
Gary Lightbody
That's
from
right.
Snow Patrol, which I loved at the time, especially. I listened to a lot of them, and the song is fantastic. And I got hooked.
And now you're wearing her shirt.
Now I'm wearing her shirt. I wore a mirror ball suit to her concert. And
Real quick, Lauren Elizabeth, do you have any videos of your father from the concert singing along?
Yes.
Insert them now. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyway, that's how I became a Swiftie.
Cool.
And if I'm going to get real here for a second, let's be honest. That's what this podcast is about.
A platform to get you to
To
have
get
the
real.
opportunity to
No, to
Talk-
get real.
get rid.
To talk about feelings, Steve.
Okay, cool.
It really provided me an avenue to connect with my children. And I loved that.
Yeah,
And so
I respect the
embraced
hell
that.
out of that.
So anyway, so it was a lot of fun to have them all at the concert.
And I'm sorry, Bonnie, I said hell.
I did too. I think she's okay with hell. I mean,
Do you think
as
she'd
a
ever
word, probably not as a concept.
would Bonnie ever come on the podcast?
Yeah, she would. She'd be great.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Taylor Swift, Marissa Tomei, Eddie Vedder. Really, any member of Pearl Jam would be okay.
Hillary Gad,
Hilary Gad,
Bonnie
Bonnie
Hilverda.
Hilverda.
Okay, we've got our list.
So there we go. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of today's podcast.
What are we talking about today, Brian?
Well, did you like that? Meat and potatoes. Because today we're going to be talking about one of the most famous lawsuits of all time from a civil perspective and one of the most famous criminal trials of all time. And some cases are just more popular in the media than others.
I'll say this, though. People approach you with your case all the time nobody really approaches me with my case.
That's probably true.
But how often do you hear about your case that we're going to describe?
All the time. Today we'll be discussing the lawsuit of Stella Liebeck versus McDonald's. And most people will go, huh? And then they'll go, wait. And if I said it's the hot coffee case, people go, oh yeah, that was crazy.
And in what context do you hear about it?
I hear about it all the time because people come into my office and they've got some issue like we've talked about on the last episode of dealing with injuries following a wreck or something like that. And honestly, 9 times out of 10, people will say, I'm not litigious, or, I don't like lawsuits, or I've never done anything like this, but let me tell you what happened to me. And I'm not like that hot coffee lady. I'm not like the hot coffee lady that spilled in her lap and got millions of dollars. And that's just stupid. But let me tell you about my case.
And I bet the 1 out of 10 is somebody saying, that's all I could get in my case. You can get $1 million for a hot coffee and I can't get any more than this.
Yep. Comes up all the time. And this case actually happened like early 90s. So we've been dealing with the fallout of Stella Liebeck's case for 30 plus years now, which is crazy. But it became the poster child for the insurance industry to rally around a concept called tort reform. And they were extremely successful because they made this case the poster child. So we're going to talk a little bit about Miss Liebeck today.
The hot coffee case.
The hot coffee case.
Okay, so what happened?
So I'll give you let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Let's flip this script a little bit. Why don't you tell me what happened?
Well, I've seen the documentary, but it's been a while.
So you're skewed a little bit.
Yeah, I know a little bit more than the average person, but here I'll give you the nuts and bolts of what I normally hear people understand. And I'll try to give you some details. If I get them wrong, you correct it. Okay. Because I don't think about this case nearly as much as you do. She went, so Liebeck is her name.
Mm-hmm.
She went to the drive-through of a McDonald's.
Correct.
Ordered a coffee.
Correct.
The coffee was handed to her. And as she sat it, I believe it was in her lap, the lid came off and spilled on her genitals. And she then sued because she had injuries to her genitals.
And how much did she get in her lawsuit?
I can't remember, but it's not what everybody thinks it was. I think everybody thinks it was like $100 million, but I think it was only like 2.8.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
But it was reduced at an appellate level, if I remember right, or something like that.
Yeah.
But getting back to it, I remember that she had basically a melted vagina. The coffee was so hot that it just destroyed her body.
Yeah.
And that she originally made a settlement offer just for her medical bills, and McDonald's turned it down.
So most people think, okay, this lady went through, she ordered coffee, she had coffee, she spilled it on herself.
And coffee's supposed to be hot.
While she's driving, and then she sued and got $1 million.
Right.
Which, when you say it like that, that sounds really stupid.
And I don't think Cosmo Kramer did us any favors in the Seinfeld episode either.
No, he really didn't.
Right.
So what really happened in this case is she had gone through, Stella Liebeck was, hold on, I'm going to open a cold beverage here.
You're drinking an alcoholic root beer on our professional podcast?
I'm just drinking root beer, Steve. I don't know if it's alcoholic or not. It is.
The 5.9% that you can see on it doesn't matter. Enjoy your root beer.
And I opened it with my Luchador bottle opener.
You did.
Anyway, most people think that she went through, ordered coffee, spilled it on herself, got millions. And that's the narrative that the news took off with. And it caught like wildfire. And that's the narrative that the insurance industry and their lobbying campaigns had focused on for decades following that case to get all sorts of terrible laws passed that sound good at the outset. When you're explaining sort of tort reform, you go, yeah, that makes sense. When you think about the practical applications, it's a terrible idea.
Do you find that the general message, do you understand why it would sit well with a lot of people thinking we don't want to live in a country that could sue over hot coffee because coffee is supposed to be hot?
Yeah, no, I do get that. I think we very much have a sense of we work for what we get, and if we work hard for it, we deserve it. If somebody else gets it without working hard, then they don't deserve it, and that's wrong. And this case really played into that.
Okay, so what describe what was it about this case then that would justify somebody getting millions in an award over hot coffee?
Yeah, so here's sort of the actual facts of this case. And they're far more complex than, what make a good little soundbite on a news clip. She was actually a passenger in her car. Believe it was her grandson that was driving. They went through the drive-through. She ordered a coffee. They weren't driving while she was trying to do it. He actually pulled into a parking spot, parked so that she could open it up and put the creamer in or something like that. And so they weren't moving. She was a passenger. There were no cup holders. So she's holding it kind of in her lap. And as she opens it, it spills. As she pulls the lid off, it kind of spills. She had sort of a sweat pant material on. And so it absorbed the liquid very rapidly and held it against her skin. And so you're right. It literally melted her vagina. The pictures are atrocious to look at. And it was, as you might imagine, significantly painful, required multiple surgeries to deal with, and was just an awful, awful injury. Most people don't know that. They think, oh, she just got burned.
Right. But injury itself doesn't create a lawsuit.
No, it doesn't. And so
you have to have some wrongdoing of a party, either an individual or a corporation, that would then raise the level of a tort that would give you a cause of action.
100%. So what actually happened is Medicare, because of her age, she was on Medicare. They had picked up most of her medical bills, but the portion that the Medicare didn't pick up that were her responsibility, I believe she had some sort of family friend or somebody who was an attorney, and he said, let me just send off a letter. And he said, here's what Medicare hasn't covered. This is what happened. Just help her with her medical bills that weren't covered by Medicare, and we'll just resolve this. So we're talking like $10,000, maybe. And McDonald's said, go pound sand. And he's like, okay, well, let's take a look at this. And so they came to find out that McDonald's served its coffee like many, many, many degrees hotter than any other fast food establishment. And they did that because they had tested it and said, we can buy cheaper coffee and serve it at a hotter temperature, and people aren't going to be able to tell the difference between our subpar coffee and more expensive coffee that if you served at a normal temperature would taste way worse.
Wasn't it also that McDonald's had like a refill policy that if you were in-house and they filled it up, that I remember hearing something about this, that then you could go get free refills, and if you served it at a hotter temperature, McDonald's would somehow not be able to. I don't know if that's right.
I don't know if that's right either.
Yeah,
that's the first I've heard of that, but
somebody's
it
at
came
least
out
mentioned that to me.
in the discovery process in this case. It came out that McDonald's had all sorts of incentive to serve its temperature serve this coffee at this temperature, which was all for financial gain. And it also came out that there had been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of reports of serious burns from the coffee being served at this temperature. And they had actually done an analysis of, it's cheaper for us to buy the cheap coffee, serve at a hot temperature, and ultimately pay out on the injuries that it causes than it would be to buy better coffee and serve it at a lower temperature.
That's like Fight Club.
Yeah.
Have you seen Fight Club?
No.
Oh my gosh, Brian. Homework. Go watch Fight Club. Yeah, you can't handle blood, so that's
I don't like violence. It's the hippie in me.
Yeah, you don't like violence.
I don't like violence.
Your hair says it all. But no, Edward Norton at the beginning works for a car company and has to do an analysis of if something goes wrong in a car, you have to do the cost benefit analysis of should we fix the car or will it just be cheaper just to pay out the few people that die?
Exactly.
Yep.
And we could go through it. Ralph Nader, I mean, that's how he made his name
That's right.
back in the 70s and 80s, was realizing that car companies were doing this, and it was cheaper for them to make cars that exploded from a little fender bender and pay for the deaths than it was to make cars that were safer. And so, that's sort of the business model, certainly the one that McDonald's adopted in this case.
Right. And for them, nobody's dying. They're just getting burns.
They're just getting burns.
And what's the odds of people that are going to sue on a burn?
Right. Pretty small. You'd
Right.
have to have a pretty significant burn to make going through the litigation process worth it.
But
And-
if the pros of hot coffee mean we make more profit because we don't have to spend as much on coffee, then it might be worth it to a corporation.
Right. And so what it really boiled down to in this case was, most people know that hot coffee is hot. Like Stella Liebeck wasn't dumb. She knew that hot coffee was hot. Nobody knew that McDonald's coffee was that much hotter than any other coffee. And certainly it didn't come out until litigation of the reasoning behind that. It wasn't just, we like to serve our coffee hot because that's the way our customers like it. It was, we like to serve our customers hot, our coffee hot to screw over our customers.
Right.
And that's what gave rise to the breach of a duty, and ultimately found that, or convinced the jury that McDonald's was partially responsible for this loss. What most people think is, she just blamed McDonald's. No, she blamed herself too. And in listening to all of the evidence that the news never gets, but in a jury listening to all of the evidence, they decided, McDonald's was responsible here. They acted unreasonably in serving it this hot. And Miss Liebeck was also responsible because she's the one that spilled it. So I believe they assessed her like 40% of the fault, and McDonald's 60%, and awarded her $2.8 million.
I got it right.
You did. Way to go, Stevie.
Hey.
And ultimately, right out of the gate, that $2.8 million gets reduced by 40% because
Attorneys.
because of her negligence.
Oh, they held her to be 40% negligent.
40% negligent. So right out of the gate, you got to take that amount off.
I went blaming the attorneys.
No, that is a factor though too. I mean, most people think she got millions. Right out of the gate, she's looking at now 1.8, 1.9. I'm not good at math, but significantly less than what the jury awarded. And how they came up with the number for the 2.8? Any idea? Anyone?
I think I remember. Wasn't it based on the amount that McDonald's makes on coffee in a day or a week or something? 2 days. Okay.
$2.8 million was how much McDonald's makes in 2 days of coffee sales. And so that's what the jury decided. And they decided that they were compensating her for her injuries, for her medical bills, and they also awarded punitive damages against McDonald's for, they knew that this was wrong. They were doing it for purely financial gain, and the jury said that's ridiculous. And so the most of that award of the $2.8 million was punitive in nature, which in the state of New Mexico, they had caps on that amount. And so that number got reduced down too.
What does that mean, caps on the amount?
Caps are statutes that are passed for various reasons on different types of cases or different types of damages, that no matter what a jury awards, it gets written. If it's above that amount of the statute, then the amount is automatically written down to the statute amount. So in Idaho, we have various caps. The most common one that's talked about is for non-economic damages. Most people think that is pain and suffering. And so a jury could say, this was really terrible. Nobody should have to suffer like this. We're going to give you $5 million. And they don't have a clue that as soon as they do that, the judge is going to go and say, okay, well, the statute is, believe our cap, it has sort of an inflationary rate on it.
Right.
So it fluctuates a little bit, but it's like 425,000 or something like that. So a jury can award millions. The case is only going to be for 420, 440, whatever it is.
And caps are one of the huge tools that insurance companies have gotten through, and they are tort reform.
They are tort
But
reform.
to be clear, in Idaho, if a truck driver is driving in a very negligent way, but not quite reckless or felonious, because that gets to where you can potentially go past the statutory caps.
There are exceptions. Yeah.
He blows through, he hits me in my car, I did nothing wrong, and I lose both my legs
435,000
in pain and suffering. The rest of my life, I've got pain in my legs. I'm never going to walk again. I'm never going to be the same father. Of course, I'm going to recover medical bills, both current and future. That's outside the cap. But my pain and suffering, 400 grand.
So let's take it even a step further.
Sure.
Because non-economic damages are things you can't add up. You just rely on a jury to come up with that number. Or you rely on the parties to come up with some sort of settlement of what that might be worth. But there aren't caps on economic damages. So let's say Bill Gates and his super fancy, 64 Mustang that's worth $5 million.
You are not a car guy.
I'm not a car guy. Sorry. Let's just say
Bill Gates is driving a $5 million automobile.
That's right.
Got it.
It's basically like an airplane with wheels.
Sure.
And
Yeah, airplanes do have wheels. Okay, so he's driving around in his airplane. Got it.
driving his airplane around town, and he blows a stop sign, and he runs over your kid. Terrible, right? In Idaho, you could get $400,000 for the loss of a child. Now, I get what a lot of people will say, well, no amount of money is going to replace a child. And I get that. But when you look, if you flipped that, if I were driving around and I blew a stop sign and I hit Bill Gates in his airplane car that shoots lasers.
And he was out of work. Yeah, from his laser.
I'm not even going to talk about Bill Gates' wages.
Yeah.
His car, he could get every penny of that $5 million.
Right.
For his car. But if he kills somebody in the state of Idaho, they can get 400 and whatever the amount is, 400 and change thousand.
Sounds like a great law.
Yeah, right?
Uh-huh.
It's a protection for the rich. It's a protection for insurance companies. And if your legislatures try to tell you it's a good idea, it's bullshit. Sorry, Mom.
Sorry, Bonnie. And it's bullshit, and they likely are getting some funds from an insurance company
100%.
For their campaign.
Yep. And again, we started this episode with some of these things sound like a good idea at the outset until you put them in a practical realm and go, okay, here's what really happens with that stuff when you pass these laws. And you go, yeah, that doesn't make sense anymore. That's not a good law.
And the reason why I wanted to bring in that practical application is oftentimes like we're talking about the McDonald's case. The McDonald's case was a huge corporation, had some victims, but the vast majority of the injuries that we see on a personal basis are not huge corporations that we're going after, making conscientious decisions that are going to benefit their corporation. Oftentimes it's simple negligence, and that insurance companies are going to be paying.
Yeah.
So we're not suing a huge corporation for a ton of money. We're suing a mom and pop shop that have insurance and have thought, man, if I just insure my business, then I'm going to be okay.
Right.
And all of the protections that were started and brought about by lobbyists hired by big money are now affecting the insurance companies that insure everybody. And so they're protected still. They have now been encouraged to buy a lot of insurance to protect their business. And the insurance company is making high premiums on that. But when they have to pay out, we're still enforcing tort reform that the average Joe is getting screwed.
Yes. We've had some attempts to address tort reform in our state and other states. Some states have been more successful. They've looked at this and they've gone, no, the right to a trial by jury in a civil case is a constitutional right. It's just as important. I know I might get flack for this in the location that we are, but it's just as important as the Second Amendment. that right. But we seem to be just fine saying, hey, we're going to give that right up and give it over to the legislature and let them make that decision for us.
Holy
That's
crap.
fine.
Could you imagine if in the state of Idaho, our legislature said, we're going to take your right to bear arms and add a caveat to it, or somehow define it even further and think that that's okay?
Yep. That we'd lose our minds.
And you know what? Rightfully so.
It's a
we
constitutional
have
right.
a constitutional right. Let's not limit it.
Yep. But anyway, we've had some attempts to address it. Most of the time that those attempts have come from legislatures who have had their own cases. They've had some sort of tragedy in their lives and they've gone, wait a second, this is all I can get. And we go, yeah, because of this statute that was passed.
Yep.
And they go, well, that's not fair. That's meant for frivolous cases, not for a case like this. You go, no, when an insurance company or your legislatures talk about frivolous cases, they are talking about your case. They're not talking about some sort of ridiculous frivolous case. The McDonald's coffee case was not frivolous. There was plenty of facts to back this up. We kind of got away from it a little bit, but lawyers make their money on these cases by being successful. And if there's a truly frivolous case, those get tossed out pretty quickly. And a lawyer's not going to be in business for very long if he takes on a bunch of those cases. There's not really such a thing as a legal stick-up job. And people like to believe that there are, and politicians like to tell them that they exist. But the truth is our system is pretty good about weeding stupid cases out, and good lawyers don't take them. And bad lawyers that might don't make any money.
And they just don't make it.
Yeah. And so when you hear your legislatures, your politicians, your insurance company saying, well, it's because of all these frivolous lawsuits, question them on it. Ask them for data. Because it doesn't exist, and they're really just doing it for their own benefit, and they're talking about your case. So when people come into my office and they go, I'm not like the hot coffee lady, but let me tell you what happened to me, I usually say, you're exactly like the hot coffee lady, and let me tell you why.
Yeah.
Because this is what happened to her, and they go, I had no idea. And so that's why we're talking about it. That's why there's you mentioned there's a great documentary on HBO. It's been on Netflix as well at times, but it's called Hot Coffee. And it was an actual lawyer who was just sick of having to explain this to all of her clients. So she went out and made a movie about it. And it's really great. She addresses not just caps on damages and not just media pushing perspective on cases in insurance lobby, but she also addresses judicial appointments and elections and how insurance companies get involved in that. And some other
arbitration clauses,
arbitration clauses.
All of the things that insurance companies are doing to push our system and change it away from a truly trial by jury so that they can make more money.
Yeah. So to close the loop on Miss Liebeck, ultimately that case was appealed. There was some write downs on, comparative negligence, her 40%. So that number went way down. You also writing down the number on caps. Then you got to figure she, went through years of litigation, which cost quite a bit of money just in costs. And she probably had to pay her attorney a percentage of that money. And ultimately it settled on appeal because she was getting older. And, if she died, all of that would go away. And so they resolved it. Right. She probably walked away with, the final numbers aren't public, but most estimates are she walked away with less than $100,000 in her pocket.
And a life of everybody making fun of her.
A life of everybody making fun of her and genitalia that no longer exists. What's that worth?
Right.
Yeah. So
McDonald's changed their policy.
They did change their policy, which is ultimately how companies say they're sorry, because they don't say they're sorry, but they do it by writing checks and changing policies. And they only change policies if they have to cut a check.
Let me ask this. How many clients do you have, just going back to, and I know the McDonald's policy is only part of the insurance company pushing in our state pushing agenda, trying to get tort reform, and it's an endless battle that we face. We're part of organizations that fight that. How many of your clients that you've had to explain that policy of saying, sorry, you're capped on your non-economic damages, doesn't matter what your loss is, you cannot get more than the $400,000 ish, right around there? What's their response?
They say, well, that's most of the time it's that, well, that sort of thing's for frivolous cases, not mine.
Right.
And I have to explain to them that when politicians talk about frivolous cases, they're talking about your case exactly. Most commonly in our state, that comes up with medical malpractice cases. People will call up and say, this is what I've got. This is what happened to me. And a lot of times it's negligent. I've done enough of those cases that we can sort of look at it and go, okay, this is negligent. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes people call in and go, my doctor was mean to me or whatever. You go, that's not a good case.
And if you would file suit on that, that'd be frivolous.
That'd be frivolous, yeah.
Right.
But true acts of medical negligence, and I tell them, yes, this was negligent. No, it doesn't make a good lawsuit because we have these statutes and it makes these cases more expensive. And I explain those statutes to them and all the minefields we have to navigate. And they go, well, I thought those sort of things were, tort reform was meant for frivolous cases. And again, I have to explain that's what they tell you. But when they talk about those things, they mean exactly a case like yours. And they're like, well, mine isn't frivolous. And I said, exactly. That's the point. They're not talking about frivolous cases, but it sounds a lot better to say that they are. And that's how laws get passed. And that's how public opinion gets behind these things.
I don't necessarily want to jump into my case. I think we can handle another time because I like this topic so much.
Okay. I'll just enjoy my root beer.
Enjoy that. So do you remember, so Brian, before we were partners, he worked for another law firm and he handled a car wreck case for me.
Yes. We talked about this in episode 3.
We did, man. Your memory's sharp as a tack. The more you drink, the better your memory is.
Somebody should do a study on that. Sorry, Bunny.
Yeah. So, but do you remember the tort reform that screwed me out of some money?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, this is the most recent example of tort reform that was attempted to be changed in the legislature because the legislature themselves, a very conservative one, had a terrible accident with their family and went, wait, that's legal? Insurance companies can do that? That's not right. Yeah. And he attempted to change it. And his conservative colleagues went, what are you talking about? Are you a Democrat now?
And
it didn't get passed.
And I would be willing to state that this tort reform affects more Idahoans than any of the others.
Yeah.
Because it can affect even low number cases. You don't have to get around 400,000. You could have a small number of cases. Let me try to describe it. And you tell me if I'm right.
Okay.
Because I'm not the car wreck guru that you are. Enjoy your root beer.
Thank you.
Okay. So
take the floor, Stevie.
You buy insurance. You obviously can get full coverage, which covers your car, and you have to have full coverage if you have it, but there's different kinds of insurance. One is if you are at fault, what happens, right? So if I'm at fault and hurt you, how much is my insurance going to pay you? And there are mandatory minimums on that. In Idaho, it's only $25,000, and that's important, right?
Right.
Then there's other kinds that can protect me as the purchaser. One of those is called underinsured motorist, and there's also uninsured. So if you hit me and you are either have no insurance, or if you have some insurance, but it's not enough to cover what my damages are, then my insurance kicks in and says, hey, we're gonna pay the remainder.
Correct.
In theory. Right. And so I had purchased uninsured motorist coverage. Underinsured motorist
you
coverage.
had purchased both, but in your scenario, It was the underinsured motorist coverage that came into play.
That's right. So a guy blows a stop sign, doesn't see me whatsoever. He's going 60 miles an hour. I'm going 60 miles an hour. He T-bones me. I got very injured to the point that I thought I was going to have to shut down my law practice. Yeah. Fortunately, I recovered, but that's a story for another day, or maybe I already shared that. So he had X amount of dollars. I think he had 50,000 to go after.
That's correct.
And my total damages were somewhere around $90,000
Yeah.
when we totaled it all up.
Between 90 and like 120.
Yep. So he hits me. He has no other assets, so I'm not going to sue this poor guy for simple negligence, for anything else. And I go after his insurance. They show, hey, I only have 50,000 to go after, and I think that basically covered my medical bills.
Yeah.
So his insurance offered that up and said, look, he has no other assets. Go ahead and take the 50,000. To which I said, well, that's fine. I have $50,000 as well in underinsured motorist coverage. And most people, go ahead.
Let's throw this out here because I think this would be fun.
Yeah.
And I know this is a little skewed because we have family of an attorney and somebody who's worked in a law firm for a very long time. But our protection team here, if Steve has $120,000 in damages, has $50,000 coming from the party, what their limit is, the party responsible for the accident, and he has $50,000 of underinsured motorist coverage, meaning the person that hit him didn't have enough. And so he purchased this that would kick in if he got the $50,000 and that wasn't enough insurance.
And
So
it's called underinsured motorist, meaning it only pays out if the other person does not have enough insurance. How much can I collect in total? Lauren Elizabeth?
what would you think?
I inherited the not good at math thing
Okay, well,
from Brian.
so just think of it this way: 50 from one policy, 50 from another, and the case is worth beyond 100,000. So if they're just from insurance, how much should he be able to recover?
100,000.
100,000.
Kelsey?
Right. Yeah.
I could only recover $50,000. And here's why. Idaho is the only state or one of a couple.
One of a few. Most states don't allow this.
And this was tort reform that was passed, is the insurance companies pushed in and allowed an offset provision. What that does is my insurance that I bought, and most people can't read insurance contracts. I'm an attorney and I didn't catch this. That speaks poorly of me, but whatever.
Most insurance agents couldn't even explain to you this concept.
That's right.
That's
and I've known some car wreck attorneys that couldn't understand this.
Yeah.
But I read the research. We went through this. It allows my insurance company to write in a provision that says whatever amount I have paid for gets offset by whatever amount they have. So I have to subtract the amount that I recover from the opposing party from the amount that I have paid to do. So if the opposing party only had 25,000, I could recover an additional 25,000, meaning 50. If the opposing party had 0, that would be my uninsured, and I could recover 50. But where I had 50 and the other party had 50, I had to subtract the 50 out of my amount and go to 0, which is why we encourage our clients to get very high underinsured motorist coverage amounts, so that, because the vast majority, I only know of one company that does not do offset provisions in Idaho, but the vast majority do. And so everybody thinks whatever I get, I'm going to add 50 or add my amount on top of it, but that's not the case.
It doesn't work.
Whatever amount you have is the max you're going to get, because the offset provision is going to happen.
So you had paid years and years of premium for $50,000 worth of underinsured motorist coverage. And
That's
when
right.
you had an underinsured motorist claim, how much did you get?
0 out of it.
0. And that is 100% legal in the state of Idaho.
That's right. So
there was a situation about 5 years ago where we did have a senator whose family was in an awful wreck, and this situation applied, and they went, well, we'll go to our underinsured, and they went, well, yeah, they get a set off, and so you can't collect. And we're talking, this was big, like millions, if several hundreds of thousands, if not millions. And they went, wait, what? They get a set off for that? Like, I don't get to collect that? And they went, yeah. And they went, well, that's illegal. Like, that can't be right. And they're like, no, this is something you voted for.
here's the part that boggles my mind. The case that went up to the Idaho Supreme Court challenging this as just a what's the word? Unconscionable provision.
Yeah.
It was challenged, saying, no way should this be allowed. It's so unconscionable. Nobody understands it. Everybody's going to get screwed. Was somebody who had underinsured motorist of $25,000. They were paying for $25,000. And think about this. In Idaho to drive, you have to have insurance of $25,000. So if you're an Idaho resident, you are required to have $25,000. If you don't have insurance, then that's uninsured motorist. That's different. But so now, and the Idaho Supreme Court came out and said, well, I think it was Michigan allows for 10,000. So there's a chance that somebody from Michigan comes over to Idaho. Isn't that how they read it?
Yeah. So yeah, I think you were right. It's actually Nevada.
Oh yeah, that's
Nevada has a $15,000 limit. So they're like, somebody could come from Nevada with a $15,000 limit. And so if you just had 25 and underinsured, even though that's the minimum limit for Idaho, there's still a possibility that your coverage could come into play, which is absolutely bonkers. And
It's asinine. It's asinine.
The court that decided this, which was not our current court, should be absolutely ashamed of themselves for being this stupid.
Yeah,
and I'm okay saying that, but because they all knew that 99.9999% of insurance policies say, if you go to a different location that has a higher limit, we will provide that limit.
Yep.
They ignored that.
So in essence,
their opinion, and they did it on purpose.
All of the people that bought 25,000 UIM is a windfall. I mean, an absolute windfall for insurance companies, because they collect the cost of it and will never pay out. Never, ever have to pay out on it.
That justice did more harm to the state of Idaho than any other person I can think of, and he should be ashamed of himself.
Agreed.
And you know who you are. And we all have very simple judgments that we file in.
And you are not invited on the podcast.
You are not invited on the podcast.
We're at 50 minutes. So you have like 10 minutes.
Okay.
That's fine.
We're about done here. So,
but here we have in this room, and this is personal experience, tort reform that cause harm. I mean, I really needed that money at the time. I almost lost my business. I had to take out loans.
I almost lost your home.
Yeah, I almost lost everything because, and I expected, and I learned from it. Now I have underinsured motors from a lot, but I have seen even on, I have clients that I represent on a criminal basis that hit somebody, hurt somebody, and they did what most people do. They're young, usually, or poor, or don't have a lot of means. And so when they're searching for car insurance, they are looking for the least amount. And now they've recklessly driven, hit somebody, and they expect that there's going to be enough insurance. One, they don't understand how that works.
Right.
And then the other person doesn't have enough. And now they're looking, and instead of insurance companies or the other party takes an offset. And so now my client has to, as part of their criminal case, and it's right, they have to compensate the harmed person, but now they're on probation longer. And so there's so many ramifications that we have from tort reform that it just simply would make sense and would benefit everybody, particularly people who are hurt. They're going to make more money, and we're not going to have businesses go down.
I will say this. There was recently a case that our current Supreme Court heard that addressed the issue of just the $25,000 coverage and an offset for that. And that court corrected the mistake. I'm not going to call it a mistake, the egregiousness of the prior court.
That's great. I didn't know that.
And it was very fine work by an attorney who doesn't know who I am. And that's a very, very personal joke. But a few people will find that very funny. And to the rest of you, thanks for indulging. But that attorney did a great job of pointing out to the court just how wrong that is, that if somebody has $25,000 of coverage, of underinsured coverage in the state of Idaho, they would never, ever, ever, ever get to access a penny of that, because we have a minimum limits of 25, even if they come from out of state.
And you probably have 1 million people in Idaho paying $3 every 6 months for that policy, and it's just padding insurance companies.
They're never going to pay a penny on it. They're just taking premium for it. And our court finally rejected that and said, no, that's what they call the legal terminology is illusory coverage.
That's
meaning it's basically coverage that's never going to come into play. We could have lots of episodes on illusory coverage in insurance, but
That sounds
anyway, they did.
really, really geeky.
It really does. I'd have to be
I
really
can't.
drunk for
I
that.
can't.
So
You've got a few more there.
I do. Anyway, kudos to our current Supreme Court for rectifying that harm. The next step will be saying, no, this doesn't make sense. Most states don't allow that for any amount. They should be able to recover the policy limit that they're paying for and not some reduced amount that you're not disclosing to them.
But this is why we pull our hair out, is we were able to address it, because just defining this is tough. Like telling people about it, even for this podcast, we I don't think we planned on going into this.
We really didn't. This is on the fly discussion of underinsured motorist coverage.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, did we?
No, this is a very different issue of underinsured, but
Yeah, that's right. But this is a different
this is a
element of it.
great example of what happens with cases like Stella Liebeck.
That's right. Because
And-
all you're going to hear from the general public is it's hot coffee. Because getting into insurance law is geeky and stupid, and tort reform seems geeky. Like,
Yeah.
of course, we don't want hot coffee.
And these are going to make your rates go up way more. And if we allow this type of coverage, then everybody's going to be paying millions of dollars for insurance. I mean, we've heard all the stupid stuff insurance companies say, and they have a lot of money for lobbyists. And it sounds really good in a nutshell. I'm fired up right now.
I know.
I'm so
I
fired
can
up.
see that.
I
I'm
need
really
Taylor Swift
excited.
as a guest to calm me down.
What song would you want Taylor Swift to sing you right now to
Right.
calm you down?
You need to calm down. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Steve, Shade hasn't. Wait. Any less gay. Thank you, Lauren.
Never made.
No, I
I do
think
have a rainbow Taylor Swift
do.
shirt on, so that's
listen.
applicable.
there's a lot of thoughts that align here. But if she were here, I'd have her sing me. Man, that's a tough question. What would calm me down?
It's not. You need to calm down.
No, that gets me kind of riled up because I'm like,
Exactly.
hell yeah. Like,
Hell yeah, they need
your
to calm down.
stupid anti-gay pride sign probably took you all night to make. Good one, Taylor. If she sang the last time, that was sort of the first song I fell in love with. I'd probably be like,
What was that one again?
the last time, the one, Snow Patrol.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that would calm me down.
Yeah, we can't put a clip.
Can't we do like 10 seconds or less? I'm not an IP lawyer, so
Yeah, I have no idea.
anyway, it's a great song. All credit to Miss Swift. So if she's a guest, maybe we could get her permission. We would use Taylor's version, not the Scooter Braun
Do
version.
not
That dude's a
Ever
dick.
download or
buddy.
listen to Scooter Braun version. Only Taylor's version.
Yeah,
There, maybe we bought some
No.
credit. And
we
that's
put some credit.
She's gonna
Taylor,
come.
you got 2 lawyers in Idaho advocating for your re-recording of your albums, and have bought like every color of those albums
In
on
vinyl.
vinyl, multiple copies.
Brian has a habit of, when he's intoxicated, buying things. And how many duplicate copies do you have of Taylor Swift vinyl?
Fuck you, Steve.
Sorry, Bonnie. Well, that's episode 4, everybody.
Thank you for joining us. We hope that the audio quality is better on this one. I'm closer to my microphone.
Don't get that close. Yeah, that was way bad.
It was. And there's a reason I'm a drummer and not a singer, Steve. But please send us your questions. If you'd like to hear really nerdy insurance stuff in the future, let us know. If you're looking at your insurance policy and going, hey, does that happen on my policy? Shoot us an email. Shoot us a question. We'll answer it on the air.
Hey,
Maybe
Lauren
Taylor
Elizabeth,
Swift would help us answer it.
have you ever heard your dad seriously sing while nobody else is singing?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was a rarity that I gotta hear it. It was a first for me.
He like plays music while cooking and stuff, and like
No, but he's singing along to it. I'm talking
Oh, by
somebody is.
myself.
Oh, okay. So you're
Like-
just singing by yourself.
No. I'm saying that's
Yeah.
what you're asking. Like,
Yeah, just
no
by
back-
himself.
no
not
backing track, just singing a song.
just singing a song.
Yeah.
Really?
I've lived with him for 20 years.
All right. I've never heard him sing until 2 weeks ago.
What did I sing?
Murder in the City.
Oh well, yeah, there was a track with that. I wasn't.
No,
like,
I was
a cappella.
playing guitar.
Well, I know, but
Okay, yeah.
I had music to sing along with.
Oh,
It wasn't
all right.
like I was just like,
That was the first
if
for me.
I get murdered in the city, don't go. with
You're
a-
way too close to that mic.
I know.
Stick to drumming. It was
Don't
good
go
when
with
you
it.
sing it.
I was actually, that was probably one of the finest vocal performances of my life.
It was good.
Speaking of drumming and vocal performances, August 12th.
August 12th, a week from this Saturday at 11 a.m., the talented of the two bands will be performing Full Coast.
Lauren Elizabeth is part of that.
Yes, as is Baker James, Hilverda, and two other very, very talented individuals.
Taylor, Ali Salou, and Colin Kyle.
Yes, they do a great job. So come listen to them and enjoy quality music. And then at 1 o'clock, Run Amok will be playing on the roof, just right over here, very loudly to compensate for a lack of talent. Next time we'll bring on a guest. If it's not Taylor or Marissa, might be Eddie, might be Matt Cameron. I would take Matt Cameron. Anybody know who Matt Cameron is? He's the drummer for multiple bands. Notably, his start was the drummer for Soundgarden, also the drummer for Temple of the Dog, also the drummer for Pearl Jam.
Mookie Blaylock.
Well, no, because they changed from Mookie Blaylock to Pearl Jam whilst Dave Cruson was the drummer before moving to Jack Irons and then moving to Dave Abruzzese before they fired Dave Abruzzese and rehired
So,
Jack
Lauren,
Irons.
I only say Mookie Blaylock because it always has it like send your dad into a tailspin of music geek. So that's what just happened there.
Cool.
I'll try it on other episodes.
Okay.
We love our listeners. We love each other and our production team. And we love good root beer. And we love Taylor Swift. And we'll hope you join us next time on I Fought the Law.
Thanks, guys.